I mean, let's elaborate a little bit more on Imu. And obviously, they're about to get active, but for the longest, they were not active. They were just in that room, staring at pictures and a big ass hat.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that big ass hat. Whose hat is that? We saw Joy Boy. We saw the silhouette. Joy Boy.
I saw a theory on that.
Okay, Kenny, tell us.
Joy Boy at one point was a giant, and that's the giant version of Joy Boy's hat.
Not buying it.
Nah, why not?
I don't know. I'm just not buying it. You telling me that she just stretch and stay there, okay? And then she's just staring at it? Because I feel like there is no point in staring at something that doesn't serve a purpose actively. So there has to be something to do with the hat that you're just preserving it, specifically in the place that people don't have access to. Why is that? I feel like I know who got the answers. So please help us out.
Shoot, I mean, I got something for it. Shoot.
Okay.
So like you're specifically asking like whose straw hat that is?
I mean, if you got the answer to that, yes.
It would be Goka.
Goka. You talked about it yesterday.
Well, so you guys know like who the moon god is exactly?
No, I was on your live yesterday.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
Essentially, if you don't know who Goka is, it would be the Serpent of Hellfire. So whenever it comes to like the mermaid quintuplets, it essentially works off of Ichika, Nika, Sanka, Yanka 1, and then Yanka 2. So whenever it comes to the number 5, it would mean Goka. Also, Goka translates to Hellfire also. So that would be that Serpent of Hellfire that we're seeing. And so if you look at that straw hat, we can parallel that back to Thriller Bark. So whenever we were looking at Thriller Bark, the first thing that Ors was looking for was a straw hat. Mm-hmm. What that would also be looking for is that Serpent of Hellfire that we're seeing would also be looking for that straw hat, which that person that is going that to be, or that energy source that they're looking for is going to be Blackbeard. So ideally, that would be that whole regard.
Wait, you lost me.
Okay, wait. Can you understand? I understand. But before you even comment on it, Carlo, I think this is the time. I'm going to need you to share the theory that I had saved in the Google Drive for us to watch from Dracula Derage. Oh, please. And this is the theory about Blackbeard, because I feel like he touched on it. I just want us to move forward with the full picture, and then he can answer the questions that we might have. There goes the theory. Let's get into it, man.
So what is Blackbeard's end goal? To destroy the moon. So of course, it's your boy Drac. We'll come back here with some more theories, more speculation. So let's go ahead and lock in. Like I'm always saying, Blackbeard is our moon god. He is also our Serpent of Hellfire, which is Goka. And we already know that there were 7 moons that we have within our story, but 6 of them were destroyed or absorbed, which I parallel this with the story of the Bakunawa. But why would Blackbeard want to destroy the moon? Because it would cause the world to literally be engulfed in this extreme darkness. Well, we know that he has the Yami Yami no Mi, which is the darkness fruit. We also know that he is the only Logia that is not actually able to be intangible. So if Blackbeard is to destroy the moon, which would stop reflecting the sun's light, it would literally cause this extreme darkness in which he would be able to thrive within the darkness and actually be able to be intangible. So he would reign supreme. But he also has the power of the Quake fruit, so that would also encase all these earthquakes which are going to happen, which would be this world-ending Ragnarok-like storm. Because everybody assumes that it's going to be Loki that starts the Ragnarok event. No, it's going to be Blackbeard. Because Blackbeard also relates to Apopus because he's also a snake god that inhabits the darkness and also earthquakes. And Apopus fights Ra, and he's our sun god. But Ra would not be paralleling Luffy, it'd be Ace. And the reasons of that is because at that point in the story, Blackbeard was the void or this darkness that was extinguishing the sun, which he has the flare fruit. So this would just be a macrocosm of what we are going to see eventually later on within the story whenever Blackbeard destroys the moon. But let's take a look at Imu and Gecko Moria because they parallel each other, of course. And so we know that Gecko Moria was in the body of Ors, in which Gecko Moria was waiting for a shadow that was actually able to inhabit Ors. We parallel this with the Serpent of Hellfire, the shadow, but actually the person that Imu is waiting for to inhabit this is Blackbeard. That's why back in the Harley text, whenever we were looking at it and it says the Earth God was enraged and it used the Serpent of Hellfire to encase all the world in darkness and death, this would be Blackbeard. And this is what Imu was waiting on, for the return of the Serpent of Hellfire to actually be in fruition, for it to be used by him. But who else is paralleling Blackbeard? And this would be Orochi, because Orochi has the Yamata no Orochi, which is this mythical Zoan, which was also this 8-headed snake, which Orochi was the same person that was taking out all the other Daimyo families. And all the other Daimyo families outside of the Korazumi, their name means moon. So Orochi was making this moonless region, which was what the Serpent of Hellfire was doing by absorbing all the other moons, which just relates back to the story of the Bakunawa. So how is Blackbeard going to be defeated within the end of the story? If we take a look back at what the Bakunawa was doing whenever it was trying to absorb the last moon, it was disrupted because of the instruments that were being played, specifically the drums. And what do we know? We have the drums of liberation within our story, which is going to be Luffy, the sun god. And within the third world, it says that the sun is going to return one more time and cause this new dawn. So this is going to be that ultimate task that Luffy is going to have to overcome, in which he's going to have to use these drums of liberation to disrupt what Blackbeard is trying to do. Also, the reason why I know that Blackbeard is going to destroy the moon is because of these serpent currents that we have within the story that relates to the tides and the moon. Because whenever we are looking at the serpent currents, that was back in paradise, in which we get many different relations of a snake being related to the water, with the deep sea current and also the surface current being that diagram of how we are seeing Ouroboros, which is the tail-eating snake. We also get this with Kaido, with him being this dragon that's fighting the sun god that has the drums of liberations, in which he was also the same person that was taking out the Kozuki family, which is a representation of the moon. He's going to be the hero that is going to stop Blackbeard. This is why there's multiple instances within this story of people fighting snakes. This is also why Jinbei tells him that he needs to be this hero, even though it's of course going to be indirectly, but he's going to have to be this hero for the world. He's going to be embodying what Joy Boy and Nika are. Which just ties back to the fictional character of Sora, which he was the hero of the sea. In which Sora would just be a parallel back to Joy Boy, Germa 66 being a parallel to Imu and the Gorosei members. So this is going to be the play at hand that we are going to be seeing from Blackbeard. So Luffy is going to do that exact same thing with Blackbeard. Message. And all this took was some speculation to turn this into a theory. Real.
Message. I heard what he said.
Yeah, that's my signature.
Yes, sir. Kenny was stressing out throughout the whole thing. I was looking at him there.
Yeah,
like,
I see him. Yeah, I see him stressing out. Kitty, what's the questions, bro? I know you have some questions. Like,
he's like, what is going on? I mean, before they even have a question, I think that one of the things I want to point out is that I can appreciate really how music has a role to play.
Oh yeah,
moving forward, especially like the drums of liberation. Because I feel like for the longest, like we've seen, always Luffy has talked about like how excited he was to have a musician in his crew. Like that's the only thing that I really remember him going after. Like there had to be some sense to that.
Oh, because I mean, the ancient energy source that we're seeing like within the mural. So I mean, even if we look at your background, like how we see those people that are carrying that ancient energy source to that serpent of hellfire, that is going to be
right here.
Yeah, exactly. That exactly right there. So they're going down to hell. They're coming back out because their souls are essentially going to be reverberating with the world, essentially, which is also going to be that Nika dance that we're also seeing, because of course it's going to be that music and that rhythmic drum beat. That's why the drums of liberation is ideally going to be that ancient energy source that we're looking for.
And that's why they power EMF. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Can you invite us through, you know, what's going on through your head?
Maybe, you know, I'm just tired from working all the time.
Come on, Kenny, bro.
There's so many pieces. Like the last thing that threw me, I'm like, how is Germa getting compared to the Gorosei?
So check it out. I can explain that really easy. So, all right. So one, whenever we're looking at Germa 66, we look at like his siblings, right? So we look at Sanji and his siblings. Each one of them have a number, right?
Yeah.
All right. So what do we see whenever the Gorosei members actually get summoned on
Numbers.
They have numbers and they have summonings. Also, whenever we look at Judge, he has authority over these siblings, right? Just like how Imu has authority over the Gorosei members. So ideally, it would just relate back to how we're seeing like the story of Sora, which is the what is his name? The Warrior of the Sea.
Legend of the Marines, yeah.
Yeah, and so he's also fighting against Germa 66. If we just look at essentially like Germa 66 being that parallel to like what is his name? The Gorosei members and Imu, then essentially Sora would essentially be like the Joy Boy or Luffy in that regard. Because actually Sora has a theme song in which it's very reminiscent of how we're seeing the drums of liberation. Actually.
Who is Sora?
I told you to check it out before. It's the hero of the Marines.
Yeah, it's the hero of the Marines. So like pretty much it comes from a comic strip that we see back in Whole Cake Island. And so essentially it was I think it was Gavino that was talking about it. And so he was pretty much just going over like the fact of, oh, it's so great or whatever the case is, because Germa was pretty much like just reigning over the North Blue. And so that would essentially be like where it comes from. It's just from a comic strip though.
Okay, so next question. You saying that Blackbeard is the big dragon thing on Bombas?
Yes. So the reasons why that would be the case and scenario, he doesn't have it yet, right? Because it's going to be in Loki, because he's going to be that variation. So whenever we're looking at the first world, right, of course, we know that Nika was manifested into the world, right? Because of course, like all the slaves were like pretty much praying to be liberated, all those different types of things. That would also be happening for the Serpent of Hellfire. It was manifested into the world because everybody was like pretty much draining all those resources. That's also why we see the people up at the moon. They were also doing that to the moon. So is that clear?
How was you said Blackbeard is supposed to be Is he gonna get that devil fruit? That's gonna be the third devil fruit.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be his third devil fruit because he's gonna.
And hey, can you actually get into that? Because I saw that on the live yesterday. You explained something as far as because yesterday when I hopped on this live, this is what I saw. I had seen a theory, and I cannot find for the life of me who came up with this theory. But it is a theory about how the way that Blackbeard was stealing devil fruit had to deal with eating somebody's brain.
Oh,
and the similarity that the person that brought up was how Akainu actually landed a specific punch on Whitebeard that blew up his skull. Like it's not really shown in the anime, but in the manga, it's very prominent. So when they just believe that when he put the tarps over Whitebeard, he's actually there to eat his brain, just making sure that people don't see it. And then another example that they gave was actually Mother Caramel, who was entirely consumed by Big Mom, but by default, her brain was also consumed. So that's how they inherited that power. Now, when I brought it up to this guy, you see the ideas just flare up. And then he talks about how, that would make sense as far as you explained the Bakunawa and you explained like the Ba and how that would make sense as far as like knowledge and the brain. And I just wanted to elaborate because I didn't even get that. And I was, like I said, I was busy at the time.
That's all good. So it comes off of the concept of the Egyptian soul. So they come off of like three parts. So it essentially comes from your mind, your spirit, and also the soul, essentially. So there's three parts. So that would be the Ba, Ka, and the Ankh. So the Ankh is the intellect. So that second devil fruit that he is getting, which was Blackbeard, or I said Blackbeard's fruit, goodness, Whitebeard's fruit, that would be the intellect that he is getting essentially from what I was hearing within the story. So, or like the theory that you brought up. So I was like, okay, this is making sense. So I can see the reason on why that would be the Ankh, especially because it's that intellect, because it's coming from the brain, essentially.
Something else that you had mentioned there was the possibility of him eventually stealing Loki's devil fruit to kind of complete that circle. Is that something that's still standing in theory?
Oh yeah, I think that's guaranteed.
So are we saying
that devil fruit already?
Yes, that's the fruit that he ate because again, he wanted to eat that Nika fruit. That's why whenever we're like, again, the Serpent of Hellfire is supposed to be our moon god. What does Loki see himself as? The sun god. But we already have a sun god, which is Luffy. But he's actually that representation of the moon god. That's also why whenever we see him chained essentially to like the underworld or essentially that would be the Serpent of Hellfire being a wrap around the red line. That would be that representation.
It's starting to make sense. I'm not going to lie.
Because even in Norse mythology, isn't the what is it, Jormungand? Isn't it supposed to be the snake that wraps around the world?
Yeah, you're talking about
Jormungand.
Yeah, so that would essentially be, of course, like the world-eating snake. It also wraps around the body. That's also why we get that whole revelation of the soak that's or the serpent that's soaked in blood. That's
Wait,
why.
What did you say about him, about Loki and the red line?
So whenever we look at the most recent volume cover that we have, so Oda pretty much drew him like against the world, but he's still chained though. So that would be that representation of him, one being that Serpent of Hellfire, but also being the red line, essentially because the Serpent of Hellfire died creating the red line.
Wow.
No, this is insane. It's like, I know Kenny's physically mind blown, but I'm over here like, damn.
Nah, it's OD, bro.
It is OD, and it just it just that alone puts a lot of pieces together, because that's like, as casual watchers and casual readers, that's not something that you're putting together. But when you explain the way that you did, it's like now you understand, like, there's I don't know if this ties into it, but it leads me to believe, like, so they have a reason to be afraid of Loki almost. You feel me? Like they have a reason to not want to free him almost. You feel me?
Oh, they do. They are afraid of this man.
Do we think he's going to be able to unleash it before Blackbeard gets a hold of it?
Yes, he will see his devil fruit.
Okay.
We'll definitely see it because, like, we have to see that representation of the Serpent of Hellfire actually reintroducing it within the story, because we have only seen it within the first world within that mural.
Right.
So that's also what Imu is waiting on, because, like, whenever we're looking at Blackbeard, we have to look at it in the regard of, like, his picture was also cut. Shirahoshi's and also Luffy's picture was cut, but Vivi's wasn't. So it's like, why would Vivi's not be cut in the first place? Well, one, Imu would be inhabiting Lily's body. They're waiting for Vivi to actually, of course, get back to Marijois. That's why Imu was actually mad in the regard of why was Vivi actually not captured and brought back, because that was going to be the body that they were going to transfer to. That's why they also want Law. That's why Law's like fruit has such a high bounty on it outside of the immortality surgery.
This is amazing.
Like, so Quill, it comes from my homie Quill. So of course, like how you mentioned him, right? So that comes from him. But essentially, like, I've of course put my own twist on it. Essentially, like pretty much figuring out Emu's devil fruit because we've only seen the tail of it. I just made a recent video on it. Actually, I think it's pretty reminiscent of how we're going to see her, or not her, but his fruit rather.
Hey man, y'all heard that? We can't give y'all all the answers here, so y'all be sure to go check out this man's page, Dracula D Rage. He's gonna give y'all the theories, and y'all, like y'all just heard, he got something about Emu, man.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So does Blackbeard know that he's supposed to eat that fruit?
All right, so once he sees this fruit, he's gonna want this fruit in the specific reality of one, he is supposed to be, it's pretty much that checkered fate that we keep hearing about with the D family, right? So like whenever it comes to like the darkness aspect, that would be that serpent of hellfire, which is also like that hell relation. So once he realizes, okay, one, Loki has this fruit. This is also going to be pretty much him getting like that soul aspect because he needs that spirit from Goka essentially, because he has heavy ties with the moon also.
So Blackbeard's gonna kill Loki.
Yes. It's going to be during the...
Blackbeard's always been drawn with the moon.
If you don't mind my prediction on when he's going to do it, it's going to be during the final war, essentially. So it's going to be a parallel back to Marineford, even though, of course, Oda already said that it's going to be like sweet cake whenever it comes to how we were looking at Marineford. Parallel back to that whenever we see Loki actually die, essentially.
So, okay. All right. Okay.
Do you think Loki's going to die as a Straw Hat? That's what I want to know.
As a Straw Hat? Most likely, yeah. I think he would actually be a Straw Hat. I'm not gonna lie. I don't really see him not being a Straw Hat. So
I have a question that is if I want to make sure, Bamba, I want to make sure that we get through everything you want to talk about this specifically because I have a question that's unrelated.
No, go ahead.
So I have a question that's unrelated to somebody that we have recently seen, Rox D. Xebec. Do we see him only being mentioned in the past tense, or do we see him returning at some point?
Shoot.
Like, does he fit into this final story, other than flashbacks?
He does fit into the story because I mean it would also be based off of the inherited will. I also think that he had the dark fruit before Blackbeard actually had it. Also, with that being said, I think ideally, like I've seen a lot of stuff about him pretty much being like the man marked by flames. I don't think that's too ideal. But I mean, outside of that, I think that he's going to have heavy relations to essentially like how we see like Ace's fruit. Essentially, whenever Salvo got it right, he pretty much has those like remembered memories or like essentially like moves that like we see. Those would be those.
They're like they're talking to the person.
Yeah, it's essentially like that. So that's how I see like Xebec pretty much being reintroduced into the story. If it's not like him actually still being alive.
Okay. That's all. That's the only question I had. I was like, I feel like we gotta touch on that real quick.
Oh yeah, that's all good. Shoot, I don't mind. I love it.
Join our Discord server now and dive into a space where we talk everything: sports, anime, music, entertainment. We cover it all. And trust us, it gets hectic in there. Got questions, hot takes, theories? Bring them! Share your ideas, thoughts, and be part of the conversation. And hey, if we feature anything you drop in our videos, we'll be sure to shout you out. Our community is growing fast, so don't wait. Tap in now, leave your mark, and enjoy the fun before it gets packed. Share this with your grandma.